Hi, this is Uncle Jeff, and this is my first family vlog. It's July 4th, 2021. Niece Sally and I have been discussing recording family histories for our subsequent relatives, grandnieces and nephews that haven't been born yet, that they may know a little bit about their relatives who may not be around anymore. So she has started interviewing her mom, Judy, and she suggested that I remember and recall some of my uh, history from childhood. So here it goes. This first one is about my first 5 years when Mom was still married to her first husband, Lloyd Rasmussen, who's also, of course, Judy's father. I don't remember a whole lot about him, probably because of the circumstances surrounding his leaving and the subsequent divorce. My mom was rather angry in that year, and some of her rhetoric may have erased some of my memories of my father. Because I made a little note here, I have exactly 6 or 7 incidents that I remember that happened before the day he left on Valentine's Day 1955. So this vlog will just be those incidents. Lloyd was running Wingate's department store in Olivia, which had been our grandfather's store, and he died in 1949, 2 months before I was born, so I never knew him. He had purchased an old pickup truck that had a half-length bed in the back, so it looked like a truck that had been chopped off, and he just really loved that. He used it to haul things around for the store and do different projects. And I really loved riding in it. And I remember once we were visiting Nani at her house on the north side of town, which was on the other side of the railroad tracks. And we were going home to our house, and we chose to go down the 7th Street crossing, which didn't have any lights. But as we came up to the railroad tracks, we could hear the train whistle. So we stopped, and I always got very excited when a train came through town, because from Nani's living room window, I could actually watch the trains come through town. She's only a half block from the railroad tracks. So we waited, and pretty soon here came a locomotive with maybe a coal car hooked on the back, but just the 2 items chugging through town. And we thought that was the funniest thing we'd ever seen. All that noise and just a locomotive and one little car going through town. And that always stuck in my mind. The other thing I remember was we had a red 52 or 53 Oldsmobile, and Lloyd would let me sit on his lap and hold the steering wheel and pretend I was driving when we went slowly around Olivia where we lived. And one summer day I was sitting in the car in our driveway, which had a slight incline that went down to the neighbor's cornfield, and Lloyd must have been working out in the yard, because I was pretending to drive and moving the shift stick, and then I spotted the emergency brake, and I thought, oh, I'll pull this. Well, back in those days, people had a fear of leaving a car in park like you were supposed to do. There was some urban legend that if the car got hit, the transmission would be ruined, so everybody left the car in neutral. So of course, when I let the brake off, the car slowly started rolling back into Steve Miller's cornfield. And I'm going, ah, and Lloyd comes running and he says, push the brake, push that round pedal. Well, I could look at it, but my little legs were too short to reach it. So the car rolled back into the cornfield, crushed some stalks of corn, and got mired in some plowed dirt, I think. Lloyd came running and, rescued me. I was crying, of course, because I was all upset. I guess he just drove the car out and put it back, and there was no punishment. But it stuck in my mind not to pull any gadgets in the car anymore. Another incident was, of course, as a kid, you used to ride a lot of times standing up on the car seat, or even just sitting down. Of course, there were no car seats or seat belts back then. And I remember the ashtray in that car could not be opened. And Mother told me that, yes, once she had to do a quick stop, and I think I was sitting on the seat, but I did a header straight first, and with the top of my head, rammed the ashtray, which was partially open, and bent it enough that it never opened up again, but apparently I didn't do anything to my head. In late 1954, Lloyd traded that car in on a brand new 1955 two-tone ultramarine and white Rambler. And I remember Mother saying, I don't know why he did that. We couldn't afford a new car. But anyway, I remember riding in that car. The businessman always helped out the football players at practice because if you were from town, it was no problem. You practiced after school and went home. But the farm boys who wanted to play football and baseball and basketball had to stay after, and of course they missed the bus, so they had no way of getting home. So the businessmen all got together and divvied up the players depending upon which side of town they lived on, and would offer to take them home after practice. So Lloyd would do this in the new Rambler, and I got to go along. So he would cram, I suppose, 5 football players into the car, and so I had to sit on their laps. And I can just remember just loving doing that. There was something about sitting on a young man's lap that just made me feel good, and I think that was my first inkling that I was gay, but I didn't know what it meant. My sister Judy was in the house through 1951 when she graduated from high school. Of course, I was only 2 years old then. I don't remember her, but I guess I was the first kid that she learned how to change diapers on, unless she'd been doing that as a babysitter. And she went off to the university, and then summers she had various summer jobs and worked as camp counselors out in Vermont or New Hampshire, and didn't live at the house. So I really didn't get to know my sister until she got married in 1955, and Dudley was born in 1956. And then we started doing family holidays together, either in the Twin Cities or out in Olivia, which also included our grandmother, Nani, also known as Nani Nani to Judy's kids. And then our Aunt Ruth, Uncle Bob, and cousins Bonnie and Dick, who lived in Edina. So we would alternate the different holidays going back and forth to the Twin Cities. I do remember one time Judy visited Olivia before she married Tip. She came out with, I believe, another guy she was dating named John. He had a convertible, and it was a big deal to get a ride in a convertible. And I remember he took me around town with the top down. And I wanted to show off to him, so Brent, my friend next door, used to watch bumblebees go into a snapdragon like that, and then he'd come up and go like that and squish the bumblebee, which of course wasn't very nice, but that was something Brent did. And so I thought, oh, I'll show John how to do that. So I went and tried to do that. Well, the bumblebee stung me in my thumb, and that cured me of ever doing that again. But I remember that visit and having a very sore thumb and a big bandage on it. Another incident when Lloyd was still in the house was Easter morning breakfast. So this was probably an April day in 53 or 54, probably 54. Mom decided we had to eat outside on the picnic table in the backyard. It had been nice, and the snow had all melted, and the grass was starting to turn green. However, apparently there had been another little light snowfall because there was crusted snow on top of the grass. Well, that didn't stop her. She made all these scrambled eggs with green peppers and toast and orange juice, and carried it all out to the table. And we had to go out there and sit in our winter coats because I don't think it was any warmer than 45 degrees. The snow was just starting to melt, and of course it was in the morning. The sun wasn't very high, and I didn't like it at all. And I said, I want to eat in the house, but now she insisted. And I believe there was a family movie taken of this, which is why I remember it. The last thing I remember with Mom and Lloyd still being together was a wedding we went to, and I think I was probably 4 at the time. This was probably also in 1954. And it was in some nearby town, and at the end of the wedding they were taking photos of the wedding party, and I guess I was getting restless, so I don't think Lloyd did this, I think Mom did, but anyway, she pointed up to the wedding party and said, okay, now when you grow up, which one do you want to marry? And I had been looking at the groomsmen during the whole wedding, and I just thought the short one on the end was just handsome as could be. And so I said, him. And she went, oh, haha, no, 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 no. You mean over on that side where the girls are? And I looked at her and I said, no, I want to marry him. And she, of course, just thought that was some foolish talk from a young kid. But to me, that was the second time that my gayness came out early on. And years later, when they confronted me about my coming out, I reminded her of that incident, which I think she chose to not remember, but it was very clear in my mind. And the last thing that happened before Lloyd left on Valentine's Day 1955 was the death of their good friend Florence Wadheim, who was Papa Pete's first wife. This happened just 17 days before, January 29th. She drove across that uncontrolled crossing where we'd gone with the half-size pickup truck and didn't pay any attention. A train came through town and killed her instantly. And nobody could really understand how she missed it, even though it was an unmarked crossing. The trains always blew their whistle, but it was January. She had the windows up, the heater going. She always loved to have the radio on in the car, so it was probably playing loud. And I always thought she must have been coming from our side of the tracks on the south side, because when you approached the crossing that way, there was a big tall grain elevator to the left, and you had to pull up carefully to make sure there wasn't a train coming that forgot to blow its whistle, I guess, because you'd always hear the whistle, because the train would be right on the other side of that tall grain elevator. So I figured that's what happened. Then when doing family research, I read an article from a newspaper that described the incident, and they said that she was going to pick up Peter at the drugstore when this happened. Well, Pete and Florence were neighbors of our nanny on the north side of the tracks. In fact, they had a garage they shared with her that was built right on the property line, so I know she was coming from the north going to the south, where you had clear view of the tracks, both right and left. And for some reason she was in some sort of zone and didn't hear the train or didn't see the train. Anyway, it was instant death, and that was that. Later on, I've come to understand that her exiting the earth in such a tragic and early way opened up the doors for my subsequent life to change, and my mother's too. That'll be in a future vlog.